As vaccines roll out for adults, we check in on the people like healthcare workers who got them first, weeks and months ago. How are they doing? And a bill designed to protect animals is prompting one group to express a lot of beef about it. It relates to animal husbandry. Speaking of animals, one Colorado eagle who recently found a new husband has grown her family. We have a bird's eye view of the news today, especially the good stuff. See you next. As more families are getting in line and receiving their vaccines, they are looking back and wondering what happened to the first folks who got their vaccines and how well has it worked out for them. So Anusha Roy started looking through the data.
We took a look at the first couple of tiers of people who got their shots months ago. Healthcare workers, people at long-term care facilities, and those 70 and older.
It's great. We have actually seen a significant impact.
At SEL Health, they've noticed their own trend among their employees since the last wave.
In November, when COVID was really at its peak, we had almost 400 healthcare workers that were out either for testing, because they were positive or because they were quarantining.
That number dropped as low as 10 this month. Along with COVID precautions, the hospital is particularly thankful to vaccines.
I knock on wood every time I look at those numbers, and I hold my breath.
We've chatted with Doug Farmer with the Colorado Healthcare Association before about long-term care facilities. He said he's also seeing a dramatic drop in cases.
I'm sure there's a combination of things in play right now, but the numbers are really encouraging. The number of cases right now in long-term care settings. It's the lowest that we've seen since the pandemic began.
All of this needs the perspective that Colorado is in a fourth wave. Hospitalizations reached just over 400 for the first time since February, and the state said this wave is looking different because of variants, better preparedness, and also because of who has received their shots.
In Colorado, the risk of hospitalization is clearly increasing in those less than 50, but is flat or decreasing in older age groups.
It reflects what the Health One system is seeing. A high-risk group is those 75 and older. They made up 30% of Health One's COVID patient population in November, one of their worst months. Since the vaccine started rolling out after that, the number dropped to 17%. And while deaths are much lower, unfortunately, this group still makes up half of the COVID deaths within the Health One hospital system. So Health One did say that from the beginning of the vaccine rollout, they've admitted a total of 14 people for COVID who were also fully vaccinated. But they did say that every one of those people actually had at least one other underlying health conditions. And overall, it's a small percentage of the total number of people they have been treating since this vaccine rollout started a couple of months ago. The state said that they are still working on a bigger look at this, Jeremy, and they said they should have more of that statewide data ready to go for next week.
Yeah, and what about the healthcare workers at Health One?
Yeah, so they actually, the last update they got about this was a month ago, and 4 people tested positive for COVID, and that's out of more than 11,000 employees. And they actually stopped getting frequent updates about this because so few healthcare workers and employees were falling sick. And so again, they are attributing that to 2 things, right? People following their COVID protocols and also the vaccines. And both the health systems we talked to today said that through contact tracing, they found out that a lot of this was happening outside of the hospital system. And just for a little bit of a more perspective, a couple of the other health systems said that either they were having low numbers of healthcare workers falling sick from even before the vaccine rollout, it just stayed low over the last couple of months, or Jeremy, they just weren't quite ready with their data yet to draw any kind of correlation yet.
Well, things are changing and the numbers are changing. Well done, Anusha. Thank you very much. Terry Lyker will be remembered as someone who loved having her picture taken as much as people love to see her smile. Friends and family gathered for a celebration of her life today at the CU Events Center, the home of her favorite team, the Buffs. Terry was one of 10 people killed inside the Boulder King Soopers last month. The 51-year-old had worked at that store since 1989, but those in attendance today decided to focus on what they described as a big and beautiful life. She loved parades, loved animals, and especially loved parades with animals in them. Terry was an athlete who won 32 medals in the Special Olympics. Terry's mother didn't speak at today's service, but a letter she wrote for her daughter was shared, saying, "I miss her in so many ways. She was just high on life and on love." There are 40,000 people in our state who work at Colorado farms and dairies so we can have food and milk on our table. So let's talk about one of them. A father of 3 who died in a very horrible way at a dairy just outside of Greeley. We just learned about him today. He was 44 years old. His name, Juan Panzo Temoxtle. He liked soccer and basketball. Like many dads, he left his family behind in Mexico so he could earn more and provide. While driving a manure truck at the Shelton Dairy just outside of Greeley, it sank into a pit of manure. Workers tried for 30 minutes to pull the truck out of that pit while he was stuck in the cabin. He drowned and was declared dead at the hospital on March 31st. We spoke with Fatima Ahmad, an advocate for farm workers who has been helping with his family with a GoFundMe.
If our advocates hadn't been out there and they hadn't known to reach out. So I think that this death is often hidden, not heard of, and shouldn't be the cost of doing food and having dairy in America. This should not be, accepted.
The news of his death is being shared as lawmakers try to push for a new law we've covered here at 9 News. It's called the Agriculture Workers' Rights Bill. It's designed to give farm workers more rights and protections like better pay and job safety. The Colorado Cattlemen's Association has said it's against the bill because the industry is already covered by federal law. Animal husbandry does not mean what it sounds like. Simply put, it's the breeding and caring for farm animals. In Colorado, that includes raising cattle to become food. There is an effort that could end up on your ballot that could limit what a rancher does with its cattle. And as our Marshall Zellinger found out, it could also criminalize a common practice with pets.
There's no pretty way to talk about Initiative 16, a ballot issue trying to qualify for the 2022 election. It's called PAWS, Protect Animals from Unnecessary Suffering and Exploitation. It would expand the definition of sexual act with an animal to include actions that ranchers and vets say are not sexual at all.
It doesn't actually specifically outlaw procedures like artificial insemination or spaying and neutering animals or helping animals be born, but it classifies them as cruelty to animals.
Diane Matt, CEO of the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association, believes Initiative 16 would make it a crime to spay or neuter a pet because the initiative changes sexual act with an animal to include intrusion or penetration, however slight, with an object into an animal's private areas.
For spaying and neutering, what people may or may not know is that means objects get near the hind end of an animal.
According to the initiative's website, it would not prevent spaying or neutering to improve the animal's health, which doesn't necessarily include controlling the pet population. The initiative would also put in law that livestock cannot be slaughtered until they've lived 1/4 of their life. How long is that? Well, the initiative would also define a lifespan. A cow, 20 years, a pig, 15, a turkey, 10, and a chicken, 8. That means ranchers could not kill them for meat until a cow is 5, a pig almost 4, a turkey 2.5, and a chicken 2. Animals for food are usually slaughtered much younger.
By holding those animals and forcing those animals to in this case, live that amount of time, you're going to see really a decrease in the quality of the meat and likely a decrease in the quality and the well-being of the animal.
The Colorado Cattlemen's Association is one of a handful of agricultural organizations working together to fight a ballot issue that isn't even on the ballot yet, causing uncomfortable conversations about when an animal becomes food.
If you're to wait longer, we could see lameness issues, we could see health issues, we could see welfare issues that actually would be very harmful to the well-being of the animal, in some cases cause loss of life.
You know, when you go to journalism school, you're never told, here's how you're going to do a story. Well, forget it. The ballot issue is still going through the process to be approved to collect signatures. That requires more than 124,000 valid Colorado voter signatures. You did not hear from either of the men who are pushing this issue, as they have chosen not to respond to my phone calls, text messages, voicemails, Facebook messages, and email. Jeremy?
What a story, Marshall. All right. Thank you for that report. It's important to remember that there are some real barriers to some people who want and need the vaccine. That's why our word of thanks this week, our micro-giving campaign has been focused on vaccine equity. Since Wednesday, you have raised more than $35,000 for the Center for African American Health. The nonprofit focuses on COVID testing, vaccine clinics, vaccine education, and outreach. You can text thanks to 303-871-1491, and we'll send you the link to donate. The smaller a county is, the bigger the impact a slight rise in COVID-19 cases can have. So one western Colorado county is taking matters into their own hands. Our Friday good news is a full diaper. Well, access to diapers anyway. For a year now, we've been following the baby mama drama playing out in the skies and trees above Stanley Lake. What does the soap opera have in store for us today? Next. And welcome back. A former Colorado Democratic state representative has been acquitted on charges that she provided alcohol to a minor. A former campaign worker had testified that in September of 2018, Rochelle Galindo of Greeley offered her wine despite the fact the campaign worker was only 17. The allegation wasn't reported until May of 2019 when reports surfaced that Galindo has sexually assaulted an adult campaign worker whom she was in a relationship with. Law enforcement investigated the assault allegation and did not charge her. Despite that, Galindo resigned that same year. When the governor changed the statewide mask mandate last weekend to relax the rules in some counties, there was concern from public health leaders about the confusion that might cause. One southwest Colorado county is doing something to clear it up. Commissioners in Ouray County passed a new county-wide mask mandate on Wednesday afternoon. The statewide mask mandate doesn't apply to counties in that area that are in the green on the state's COVID dial. One commissioner told us, not surprisingly, that they got no heads up from the governor about the change in the rules. They wanted to extend mask rules in the county for consistency. Ouray County has a small population, which means a small increase in cases can move them on the dial pretty quickly.
In order to prevent us from having to switch back and forth between requiring masks, not requiring masks in the event we go up on the dial, we just want to keep it consistent and keep the masks for now.
Ouray County's mask mandate will last for 30 days, then they'll check on that then in a few months. That county of 5,000 could easily have an extra 20,000 people as tourism picks up for spring and summer. More than 1.2 million Coloradans have completed the vaccination process, 1/5 of our state population. 20% of our state is younger than 16 and cannot get the vaccine just yet, though Pfizer announced today it's seeking FDA permission to allow kids from 12 to 15 to get shots. Governor Jared Polis and state health officials say we are now in the so-called fourth wave of the COVID-19 pandemic in Colorado. Our hospitalizations have now risen above 400 for the first time since February. Just last month, we were below 300 people in the hospital. The governor says people between 18 and 50 account for the biggest increase. Do you remember what you did for your 10th birthday? A Frederick girl skipped the party to help others. It's a selfless bit of Friday good news. While one pair of Colorado bald eagles needs to start over, another just became a family of 4. It's bird drama, so you know it must be next.
A beautiful Friday afternoon for us. Bright blue skies out there, but if you squint, you can see some of that dust, a little haze across the eastern plains as they're dealing with some pretty strong winds. That cold front helped to keep us cool and below average at just 50 degrees out at DIA. And those winds, 20, 30, 40 mile per hour gusts, close to it anyway, coming across the eastern plains. Tonight, still blustery, but mostly clear with an overnight low of 31. High pressure is around, though, for the start of the weekend. This next storm system waiting in the wings, and that'll cool us off for the second half. Daytime highs tomorrow so close to 70 degrees. We'll have some nice sunshine out there. It's warm along the eastern plains and pretty mild up in the high country. We'll cool things off just slightly on Sunday, and then looking ahead toward next week, the rain and snow, it's back.
We cover a lot of bird drama here on Nest with Kyle Clark. Most of the time it's all in good fun, but sometimes it is sad. A tree that was home to some nesting bald eagles fell down in Bar Lake State Park. The nest was destroyed and the 2 unhatched eggs inside were found underwater. Sadly, the eaglets did not make it. The basket of the nest had actually been up in that tree since 1986. Colorado Parks and Wildlife says they retrieved it and plan to put that thing back up in a more viable tree later this summer. Now, you would think a younger tree with sturdier limbs would be better, but CPW says that's not the case. Bald eagles actually often prefer trees with dead limbs, probably because their view isn't obstructed by all of those leaves. And so that's your unsolicited bird fact of the day. All right. You know what? You deserve some good bird news after that. We're happy to report there are 2 new baby eaglets at Stanley Lake. The female bald eagle, known as F420, is a mother of 2 as of yesterday afternoon. You of course know we didn't get to this point without some drama here. Last April, F420 attacked the nest of an eagle couple at the lake. She drove the mother off, and then she shacked up with the father. Now it appears they've both started a new family together. Here's hoping it'll last happily ever after. A 10th birthday that wasn't about the birthday girl. It's your Friday Good News, and it's next. Today is Friday, and for the last 243 Fridays, we've had the privilege of sharing your good news. For the 244th edition, we've head up north to I-25 to the town of Frederick to learn about one young girl's selfless act. Kelsey Montgomery turned 10 this year, and to celebrate her decade on this earth, she decided that instead of focusing on herself, she would celebrate by helping out others, specifically babies. So she started a diaper and baby supplies drive. Her idea was to put a box on the porch of her home and call on the Frederick community for donations. Her original goal was to get 50 each of diapers, wipes, baby lotion, washcloths, and nail clippers. Well, she didn't get that. She got more than 6,000 items instead, thanks to the huge generosity from her community. Isn't that awesome?
This is a really cool thing to do, so we'll go spend money on diapers. I thought that made me really happy.
I think it speaks volume for our community and our surrounding neighbors, because I think, the most of our donations came from strangers, from people that were not in our neighborhood, people that don't know us.
Great to Frederick and Kelsey. Last month, Kelsey got to drop all of the donations off at WeCycle, a Colorado nonprofit that helps families get essential baby items. She tells us she would like to do another donation drive soon. She's thinking of dog food next that she can take to the local shelter. Some feedback tonight from Jonathan. Great to have Jeremy Hohola on 9 News with issues that I don't think we would otherwise hear. No slight on Kyle Clark, but just saying that a focus on different issues is a good thing. I think my friend Kyle would actually very much agree with your tweet. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you for watching. Take care. Have a great weekend.